Hi guys, my name is Lorbai, or Maddie. Today I'm reading chapter 47 of #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. We have 3 chapters until the end of the book. Let's get right into it. In a day filled with disgusting things, extracting Wynonna from her waxy tomb was the worst. Even grosser than fishing Hannah's braided wig out of the still boiling hot tub and shaking off bits of fatty skin that had adhered to it during its soak. Okay, maybe that was the grossest thing. But wrestling Wynonna's wax-crusted body into her wheelie chair was a close second. It wasn't so much that she was handling a dead body. Sadly, that wasn't a new experience for Dee. But the wax coating on Wynonna was still warm and slippery from the sprinkler bath, which made it feel as if Wynonna weren't actually dead at all. She looks surreal, Nyles said, staring at the carcass corpse as Dee arranged Hannah's wig on Wynonna's head like a dada painting. Like a dada painting or an Ernest? Do you think it'll fool Molly? Up close, not a chance. But from above in bad lighting, it might work. Dee wriggled the wheeled chair back and forth to make sure that the colored yarn kept the body secured. Waxy Wynonna in Hannah's gore-splattered dark brown wig would at least make Molly curious. I hope. Nyles crouched down and smeared the wax away from Wynonna's feet, exposing a pair of bright green rubber Crocs. It took some doing, but he managed to pull them from Wynonna's stiffened limbs. Then, kneeling before Dee, he offered to put them on her. They're not glass slippers, Cinderella, but they might help. Thanks, Prince Charming. The rubber Crocs stretched around Dee's bandages and though walking was still painful, Nyles was right. The ache was lessened. Shall we? Nyles asked, straightening up. Dee nodded. Cinderella Survivor 2.0 is ready to roll. Dee carefully climbed the scaffolding in the Zoolander room, slowly placing her weight on each foot and making sure her hold was secure. If she made too much noise, it might draw Molly's attention, and then they would be screwed. When she reached the top of the wall, she flattened herself against it, just as Nyles had done, and scanned the maze. Molly Muller sat on top of the wall at a corner, using the 2 converging edges as her seat. As Nyles had described, she wore some kind of circus getup, striped red and white tights, a full black skirt with a massive crinoline petticoat beneath, and a black and white coarse top. Her face was painted with demonic clown makeup, complete with evil eyebrows drawn in at a steep angle from her forehead to the inner corners of her eyes, and the requisite red foam nose. Molly bounced her legs against the wall like a bored child whose patience had worn thin, and she was entertaining herself with a white plastic object in her hand. She pressed a button and a door with a cage would start to open. She'd press a button and a door on a cage would start to open. There must have been wolves inside, because they would howl with excitement as the door crept up a few inches, and then Molly would click the button again, sealing the cage tight. She'd whip the wolves into a frenzy, but even that was starting to bore her. She glanced at her watch, clearly antsy. "You won't have to wait much longer, Molly." Dee's eyes drifted to the right, where Nyles hurried through the twists and turns of the maze, pushing Wynona's chair as fast as its wax-clogged wheels would go. As he approached Molly's lair, he slowed, counting his path turn by turn. Left, right, left, right, right, right. Left, right, left, right, 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 left. He stopped cold right before the entrance and gave the chair a massive shove. Molly was instantly alert. "It's about time, Cinderella survivor," she said, her voice crackling with delight. "I was worried the sprinklers might have drowned you." She waited, expecting a response, but Waxy Wynonna wasn't going to give her one. "Cat got your tongue," Molly said. "Or should I say wolves got your tongue? Nice one." Again, Molly waited for a response, but this time she seemed more suspicious, leaning forward to peer at the body in the chair. "Is she gone yet?" Nyles panted, his head peeking over the edge of the wall. He made it back to her in record time. "Shh." Dee held her breath. "Seriously?" Molly said at last. She placed the white rectangular object beside her, then reached down behind the far side of the wall and flipped something over the top. The wolves began to howl again, sensing new activity, and as Molly turned to climb down, Dee realized she had a rope ladder. As soon as Molly's head disappeared, Dee pressed herself up into a standing position. The wooden beams of the maze walls were less than a foot wide and not particularly sturdy, which made the journey a little bit like running the length of a wobbly balance beam high up in the air on feet that had been numbed up with Novocaine. She gritted her teeth against the stupefying pain and kept her eyes locked on Nyles straight ahead of her. Below, Molly was examining the body that was strapped to the chair. She lifted a braid of the wig and gave it a tug. The fake hair slid easily from Wynonna's wax-crusted head. "What the fuck?" Molly said, dropping the wig. Then she turned, looked up, and spotted Dee. They locked eyes, holding each other's gaze for what felt like an eternity. Dee saw Molly's confusion morph into rage and just for an instant, fear. Then her eyes dropped to the ladder. At the same moment that Molly broke into a sprint, Nyles lunged for the ladder and started pulling it up. Molly launched her body at it like an NBA forward, attacking the net, and managed to catch hold of the bottom rung. Dee tried to help, but with the advantage of gravity, Molly yanked the rope ladder from their hands like a smooth nylon burned as it ripped through Dee's palms, and Nyles grunted, his bandages little help against friction. The wolves growled, their guttural rumbles reverberating through the walls as Molly began to climb, but Dee wasn't about to give up. The ladder was attached to two of the stud beams by carbiner clips fastened to metal rings that had been drilled into the wood. "Nyles, the clips," she shouted. If they were going to unlatch the carabiners. Oh my god. I'm stupid. The stud beams by carabiner clips fastened to metal rings that had been drilled into the wood. "Nyles, the clips," she shouted. If they could unlatch the carabiners, the ladder would drop to the floor with Molly on it. They each reached for one, straining against the weight of the grown woman climbing up the other side. Luckily, the nylon rope had some give to it, and by planting one leg against the beam for leverage, Nyles was able to pull the first carabiner far enough to slip the rope out. Its stabilization gone, the free end of the ladder whipped around through the air. The wall rocked back and forth as the ladder twisted around, slamming Molly against the cage. The wolves went ballistic, throwing their heads against the metal bars in an attempt to get a piece of her, and Molly had to kick her feet against the bars to push herself away. Dee swung a leg off the side of the wall, straddling it for balance against its unsteady motion, but Nyles wasn't quick enough. Dee watched in horror as he teetered forward towards the wolf pen. He flailed his arm, shifting his balance just as the wall wobbled in the opposite direction. Instead of leaning forward, Nyles stumbled off the other side, plummeting into the darkness below. "Nyles!" Dee cried. She could barely discern the outline of his body on the concrete beneath her as tears blurred her vision. Was he dead? Had another person she cared about died because of her? A scream from the wolf pen reminded Dee that she wasn't out of danger yet. The wolves had caught strands of Molly's hair in their snapping jaws. She yelped in pain as the wolf pack pulled chunks from her scalp. Molly paused at the next rung of the ladder, desperate to escape, but as the wolves pulled her towards the cage, Dee saw the rope ladder slacken. She reached for the second carabiner and quickly unlatched it. Then, with one final heave, she pulled the nylon loop from the shackle and let the entire weight collapse to the floor. As she slowly stood up, Molly looked even more demonic, makeup smeared, tights torn, hair in a rat's nest dotted with bald spots, but Dee had to give her credit. She didn't panic for an instant. "When I get my hands on you," Molly began, her voice disturbingly calm, "I won't need one of my animals to dismantle you limb from limb." It wasn't a threat Dee took lightly. "The postman wants you dead." She thought of Nyles, his body splayed out on the ground beneath her. "He wants us all dead." "No," Molly snarled. "Just you." "I know about the reward," Dee said. She wanted Molly to understand what was happening, to surrender to Dee before she had to do something unspeakable to protect herself. "And I know that there's a new lineup of killers set to arrive on Alcatraz 2.0 next week." Molly's rage faltered. "You do?" Dee nodded. "I know he promised to keep you around if you killed me, but trust me, he's not. He's going to kill all of us. Your only chance is to let me go." Dee watched Molly contemplate this new information. She glanced back at She glanced back at DIY Nona dressed in Hannah's wig. Would she believe the truth, or would distrust and bloodlust win out? Molly picked up one end of the ladder with a loud grunt. She tossed it upward towards the top of the wolf cage. Well, there was Dee's answer. The ladder crashed back to the floor, but Dee saw what Molly was trying to do. The top of the cage door had a lip on it. If she could get the ladder to catch, she could scale the side of the cage and jump from there onto the top of the wall. But there was only one way to stop her. Dee had to open the cage. She'd been hoping to avoid that scenario. She had no choice with the others killing them to save herself, but she would have to be content to leave. But she would have been content to leave Molly trapped in her animal pen, where she wouldn't do any harm. The idea of allowing someone to be eaten alive, even someone as loathsome as Molly Mahler, a.k.a. Ruth Martinello of 157th Hillcrest Avenue in Marquette, Michigan, made Dee's heart ache. But she couldn't let Molly escape or potentially kill her. Dee picked up the white remote, closed her eyes, and pressed the button. The screams were unbearable, and though Dee pressed her fingers onto her ears, she couldn't block out the spine-chilling sound. It was over quickly, though Dee wasn't about to look down. She didn't need to see the carnage to know that Molly Mahler had gotten a taste of her own medicine, and that the wolves had gotten a taste of Molly. Suddenly the wall shook violently, and Dee had to grip it with both hands to keep from falling. The wolves were still hungry. They threw themselves at the maze wall, bloody paws and snouts splattering the wood with Molly's remains as they tried to claw up to Dee. They were frenzied, and Dee was afraid they might bring the wall down as they repeatedly launched themselves against it. Time to leave. Without the benefit of the rope ladder, it wasn't going to be pretty. She lowered herself down on the far side of Molly's pen, dangling as far as she could by the fingertips of her good arm, then let herself fall. The pain of impact rocketed up through her numb feet to her shins. If her ankle hadn't been sprained before, it certainly was now. But her left leg appeared to be unbroken, and she was able to crawl to Nyles' side, urgently seeking signs of life. Nyles, a sob caught in her throat. Nyles, say something. His shoulder lay at an unnatural angle beneath his body, but she didn't see any blood from a head wound, and as she reached a tentative hand toward his throat, she practically shrieked with happiness. His pulse was strong. Nyles was alive. Nyles was still alive. Yippee! Yippee! I'm so happy he's still alive. She was so ecstatic she almost didn't hear the voice behind her. Hello, Cinderella. Dee's sobs stopped instantly. The voice was familiar, and Dee knew what she was going to see before she even rolled over to face it. Prince Slayer. Part of her had always known that this was what she'd find at the end of the maze. Slayer looked exactly the same as when they'd last met. Well, almost. There wasn't any blood or any trace of a stab wound on his stark white Prince Charming coat. But other than that, the costume was identical, as well as the night vision goggles and ugly twisting blade. Except this Slayer was noticeably shorter. It was time to end the charade once and for all. Take off the mask, she said, her voice remarkably steady as she struggled to her feet using her good leg. Cue me. Slayer stood utterly still for a moment, then raised a hand to the night vision goggles, and then slowly raised a hand to the night vision goggles and slid them off. Mara dropped the max to the floor and smiled. Oh my god, what? That is the twist of a lifetime. Okay. Crazy. But that's the end of chapter 47. So, I will see you all next time. Bye bye.